Good morning. Today we're talking about gaslighting. It's kind of a hot topic, kind of a big word, but we're going to take this at a different angle because I believe there's a spectrum, and I believe you have probably at some point been a gaslighter, and you may not know it. And with some peeling this thing apart, I think that communication can happen, perspective can happen, some of the contention that we have with each other, all over the media, opinions, right and wrong, all this stuff. We can look at that. So yesterday we talked about self-acceptance, just letting your 100% be what it is. My 100% today looks very different than yesterday. I am not dizzy. I am not remorseful. I'm not regretting. I didn't put anything into my body that made it impossible for me to get up with any kind of vigor. I actually ate very well yesterday, so I feel super good today, so my 100% is different. Okay, I'm going to set this up. We are talking about gaslighting today. Gaslighting, when we hear that, drama, trauma, anger, frustration, victimization, those are the things I feel when I hear the word gaslighting. There's a reason, because I have experienced some pretty severe gaslighting in an abusive form. The term, just so you know, some people don't know where gaslighting came from. There is an old film. I actually want to see it. I've not seen it. Angela Lansbury was in a film when it was still black and white, so she was super young, and they were in this old mansion, she and her husband and a friend or somebody. And the husband and the friend were actually having an affair. And so part of the way to get away with it is to make her feel crazy. So like she would go up the stairs and all of the gas lights in the house would go off and they'd come back on, and she'd go, "What is that?" They go, "What is what?" And she's like, "All the lights went off." Like, "No, they didn't. Are you sure you're okay?" So it's that your reality isn't reality and you're crazy. And at the most manipulative form, it is just that, in order to manipulate, in order to control, in order to make you question your perspective and everything you know. I have experienced that. So my connecting with people and loving people and having them have their own opinions and all of that is kind of a value of mine. And as I dealt with my narcissistic father's death, and peeling apart what that relationship was, how it shaped me, how it formed me, I happened upon a book that has really changed perspective for me. It's called Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. It's fascinating, and I actually there's a recovery journal or recovery workbook for that, and I actually like the recovery workbook much better. However, I came to an understanding that I have gaslit. That was really hard for me to grab onto, because I don't feel like I'm abusive. I have lacked some emotional maturity for sure, because I wasn't taught really healthy communication styles. And so I've been kind of picking this apart. So many of us are the same. Now, not that you had narcissistic parents, but I have decided that this might be on a spectrum. I think that there is a soft gaslighting that most of us participate in, especially we've participated in with our children. And although it's not the same level of abuse as what I experienced, it still causes perspectives about yourself that is not confident. Guys, our Gen X generation, we grew up with authority figures who knew everything. And we went to them because they were wise, and they had more perspective than we did about stuff. And our perspective wasn't the right one because the adults, they had the perspective. And they were also shut down emotionally. And I truly believe that this is because of their parentage. They are coming from, if you're a Gen Xer, your grandparents were World War II people. And that generation shut down their heart because of the horrors of the war. That's what happens when we have trauma, right? We shut down and we protect and we turn off awareness. Not that you don't feel. You can't not feel. You will always be feeling. You're feeling something right now as I'm talking. But the awareness of what we're feeling, the vocabulary of emotions so that there's communication, was shut down. So when we would feel, parents would say, don't be afraid, you're fine. It's just a spider, get out of shoe. You know? We couldn't say that we were stressed or worried about a school project. It's like, well, get studying. You know? If we were bullied, it's like, well, you know, straighten up. I told you not to wear those jeans. That's what Brene Brown talks about. I told you to wear different jeans. Like, not validating what we were feeling. Guess what? We were gaslit. Because gaslighting is not honoring perspective. Now, here's the problem we've got. There is also, on this spectrum, people who have very strong opinions and they tell you you're wrong and they tell you you're lying and they tell you you don't know what you're talking about and they tell you that all sorts of crazy, crazy things, and there is no change to their mind. On this other end of the spectrum, it is not gaslighting, it is absolute loss of voice. You don't have a voice anymore. Why? Because you don't trust yourself or your perspective. Because people have told you enough that what you are seeing through your eyes and experiencing through your heart is not what is. And so you just look for validation outside of you to figure out what you are supposed to think and what you are supposed to feel. That is that shutdown, I don't have a voice. Somewhere in the middle is healthy. So this might be a little controversial. Just stick with me and know that I am working something out in my head and nothing about this is meant to be standing in conflict. I learned there's this term, this new term called almond moms. It's coming from some kind of reality show that I don't watch, where a girl is calling her mom and she says, I'm really weak. I've had half an almond today. And her mom says something like, well, have two, but chew them really slowly. And the point of it is this mom is so fixated on her own appearance, like being skinny, staying skinny, that she is training and teaching her kid to have really eating disorders, right? What nutrition is supposed to be. So it talks about having almonds. Like that's all you eat is almonds because that's healthy. And I can see in that perspective that is so wrong. So wrong. The body shaming, the controlling somebody else, even just the fascination and fixation on physical appearance as though that is your source of power, strength, goodness in the world, right? But as I was trying to research and find out what was an almond mom, I found some other perspectives that kind of disturbed me a bit. And that's because it talked about even if you don't talk to your children about this and shame them, just you restricting calories, you being all obsessed about how you look and all that leads on to problems. This triggered something in me, and I will tell you why. Because I have always exercised. Not always. There's times when I have not. And I have not felt good. And I felt sluggish in my brain. And I didn't have agility. And I didn't like it. But throughout my children's lives, I have been active. So when they were little, it was Step Reebok. It was Denise Austin. Buns of Steel, 8-minute abs. I would do that. And my thought was, after every baby, because babies do things to our bodies, if I worked out after the babies, then it wouldn't be so hard when I got older to feel good because I was continuing to do things that were good. I danced. I worked at a dance studio, and Was I obsessed with my body? Not necessarily obsessed, but I stood in leotards in front of mirrors, full length, next to teenagers for 13 hours a week for 7 years. And if there's motivation to go, you know what, I want to look and feel really good in my body, first of all, so I can move and demonstrate. This is after 5 babies. I found an eating system that worked really, really well for me. What I know now is that the reason why I don't feel good when I eat anything is because I actually have more allergies than I thought. I don't have like anaphylactic type allergies, or I don't break out in hives. I do have fuzzy brain. My gut gets kind of bloated, and it's just now at 53, I have figured out that for me to feel the best, have the best brain function, have the agility and not the pain and joint pain that I want, that I cannot eat sugar. I've known about gluten for 20 years. It's kind of one of those, I did this system way back in the day. I put gluten back in, I started having reactions, so I found it. So I have been gluten-free for 20 years, and I know I can't have grains, like any grains. Milk, I don't get the whole gassing, all that kind of stuff, but I do have a problem. And my gut kind of swells, and I start craving more sugar and all sorts of things. So I now avoid milk and grains and sugar and nuts. So I do really whole foods. And I have never had my children be on my own diet. Like my son, he's got the worst diet ever. He knows about it. He's 20. He gets to work that out. But my daughters have said something here and there. I've just lost about 20 pounds, and I said something to my daughter, and I got this really, really weird reaction. And that was a few weeks ago. So she came over yesterday, and I asked her, I go, I have a question for you. Would you consider me an almond mom? And she says, I don't even know what that is. I felt so cool because I know a trend. But she doesn't yet. So I explained what it is. She goes, I'd call you crunchy. I'd call you crunchy. So what is crunchy? Crunchy is basically what we used to call granola, right? I'm natural. When I fought cancer, I took out any of the preservatives and chemicals, things that were not natural. I took those out of my body so that my body didn't fight that stuff and have to deal with it. It was just being fed the things that either were going to promote health or destroy cancer. One of the two things. So I can roll with crunchy. And I said, okay, but online, there's all these people that are talking about that the way that their moms have talked about their body in the past causes issues. And she says, yeah, so I've been meaning to talk to you about this, Mom. I went, oh, okay, here we go. And she said that there were things that I said as a kid that caused her to body shame. Now, I've never body shamed my kids. I've never talked to them about their weight one way or another. I haven't, made sure that they're probably to a fault. Like no vegetables. Okay, have your tortillas and cheese. That's easy for me. I'm not a cook. I don't like to cook. So, kind of on that other spectrum. Not the healthiest way that I fed my kids, but there is something that I've said over the years, and her perspective of what I said is very different than what I was trying to convey. Now, I understand she was a child at the time. This is where we get into the gaslighting. Is that gaslighting is all about being able to take perspective into account and honor someone else's experience. What are they seeing through their eyes? And not being defensive. So defensiveness is when you are trying to convince somebody else of your opinion, of your experience, your thought processes, and they're wrong. Guys, we as parents do this all the time because it's kind of our job to teach our children. And when they have misperceptions about the world, we teach them. There's a way to do that that still validates their perspective. I'm going to get into that in a minute. But in this particular case, there were things that I said trying to explain some things. Now, here's a fun fact. My mom was very shut down emotionally and didn't talk to me about my body. She never had that talk, about my period. It just kind of happened. I learned from school. There was no talk. Nobody told me about sex. I had to discover that. Menopause. Had no idea. Oh, postpartum hit me upside the head because nobody explained what postpartum was going to be like. Like, it was all about getting the baby here. Nobody explained. I had no idea that I was going to leak out of every orifice of my body, and it was not going to be comfortable. Like, I had no idea. So, because of that, I talked more openly with my own daughters. And it was more about my experience, what I was experiencing, so that they would know what to expect. Now let's go back to emotional immaturity. Okay, not the best. Because I was a dancer, and I'm not talking a little dancer, I danced pre-professionally with Ballet West. I was in the studio all the time. I did not have eating disorders. I had jumped past that. But I absolutely know what my body looks like at top form. I know what it looks like when it's toned, when it's strong. I was never really frail. I was thin. And as I had babies and got everything stretched a little differently and weight coming on a little differently, people would say, "Oh, you look so great." And in my brain, I didn't. But it wasn't a dysmorphia necessarily. It was a not understanding what my body was doing as I was maturing, for sure. But what I would say is that the reason why I'm not satisfied is because I have what I termed the dancer's curse. I know what I look like. And under clothes, it looks like I'm great and I'm toned. But my body, I'm like, oh, that's not the body that I grew up with. I started dancing when I was 4. And so the body that I grew up with was always toned. And so it was kind of strange. Found out, my daughter said, yeah, like you talked about the dancer's curse. And she says, so when my body wasn't the 16-year-old body, I couldn't accept it. That fascinated me. Now, gaslighting would be jumping back in and say, well, that's ridiculous. That is not how I meant that to be. So, you shouldn't have done that. Like, you totally misinterpreted. That would be a gaslighting moment. I'm really trying to learn a different communication skill, and I feel like I nailed it last night. So she said, it's about talking about your body. It's about talking about the things you don't like about your body, like the pooch or the bat wings, or even saying anything like that. This is what was interesting. I stayed present long enough to take her perspective in, to see and hear what she was experiencing. And she said, it's different coming from you, Mom, because I have your DNA. So when you talk about things you don't like in your body, that is my future. I had never even thought of that perspective before. I am glad that I didn't do what my initial reaction was, which this is absolutely ridiculous. The fact that I have anything to do with your body issues is absolutely insane. I don't have body issues. So yes, I'm being aware of what I'm feeling, or what my body looks like, but I'm not beating up on my body. So why would you beat up on your body? Like, I didn't do that to you. That is soft gaslighting. I've done it for years, right? So check in and see about perspective. And how good are you at suspending the shame? Because that's what it's about. Suspending the fact that the accusation means that you're wrong. I was not wrong in the way I grew up. I was prey to what? Marketing. Yeah, there's diet culture out there. I believe that this other generation that is mad about everything and mad about parents being this and being that, and that we destroyed them. See, we were the opposite. We didn't even know our parents had any effect on us. Our kids are learning that some of our immaturity had impact on them, so they're blaming that perspective of, you shouldn't have done that, you shouldn't have felt this way, Mom, you were like all in the diet thing. That's also gaslighting. So shutting me down because of my perspective and the way I lived and the way marketing happened or any other thing, that is gaslighting me. So I want us to stop gaslighting. She said, Mom, this is what I would love. She didn't say love. I interpreted that. If you just don't talk about your body at all with me, I would appreciate that. Like, I don't want to hear about your weight loss. I don't want to hear about, because it just messes me up. Now I could say, come on, we're family. Celebrate with me. I'm going to celebrate with you when you do things. Like, I get the same thing. Took a deep breath, and I heard her. I'm sad. And I honored the fact that this makes me sad. That celebrations back and forth cannot happen. That somehow my experience is a cause of hers, instead of, oh, that's interesting, and I'm responsible for my own experience. So she's put up a boundary. I am not to talk about my body. And it kind of felt sad and ridiculous until this morning I went back into a memory where I did the same thing. Those of you who don't know, my ex-husband, we were married 17 years, had a baby with my best friend while she lived inside my home. I was crazy, they were just friends. Gaslighting. I was ridiculous, I was jealous. Gaslighting. Well, after the divorce, they had during the divorce, she was pregnant with another baby of his, and after the divorce, they got married. And that means that my kids, that was their stepmom. And they would go over, and because they lived with us for a year and a half, her kids, she had 5, her kids and my kids were best friends, and we were their siblings. And they'd go over, and they were so excited about the new babies, and they'd talk and talk and talk, and they'd laugh and giggle, and they'd come home, and I'd say, how was your day? And then they'd start to tell me all about the babies. And it was too painful for me to experience. So I set up a boundary. And I said, hey, I'm so glad that you love being with your dad. And you love your babies, your little sisters. And I said, but that's really hard for me to hear right now. So is it okay if you tell me all the things, but you kind of don't tell me about the babies right now and how cute they are? Would that be all right? So I set up a boundary to protect my heart as I healed. And what I heard last night is that my daughter was doing the same. That's kind of what I want to wrap this up with. Is, first of all, let's go into gaslighting and find out if you're soft gaslighting. If you are defensive, if you're telling somebody else that their perspective is kind of skewed and it doesn't matter, and you're going to offer your opinion, your perspective, correct the misperception, right the wrong, teach truth and principles before hearing where they're coming from. You just automatically go, okay, but that's not how it is. You are soft gaslighting. If you are defending your position. Now, how do we do this with, okay, but I get to have a permission because there is a line of, and I'm going to honor my perspective, and I'm going to honor yours. And there is a place where yours is not fully correct. And what do we do about that? I will tell you what you do. You listen and you let someone else have a voice, and you don't squash your own. Now, somebody can have a perspective and it changes yours. And as long as you're honoring the fact that what you think is what you think, What you are feeling about something is what you're feeling about something. That is absolute truth. Do you have all of the information you need to make a judgment based on what you're feeling? No. Can you feel what you feel based on your perspective? Yes. Can you get curious about somebody else's experience so that you can find middle ground? Yes. Most of us were not raised with this. Most of us were raised with, ready? I'm right, you're wrong. I'm the parent, you're the child. I'm wise, you're foolish. I'm old, you're young. So all of that is invalidating the place that somebody else is coming from. You don't know how to validate yourself yet. Like, you have been taught so much that the perspective that you have is wrong, is not adult, is skewed, that you have lost your voice. When my ex did the we're just friends, you're just jealous, I didn't have a voice. And I wasn't able to say, I am jealous. And because of that, there is a problem, and we need to explore why I'm jealous. I am not wrong for being jealous. The attention that you are giving to someone that's not your wife is inappropriate. And being able to stand in the truth of that. Like, instead of, oh, I shouldn't be jealous, I should trust you. I didn't know how to still have a voice and take on perspective. Like, how do you take on perspective when they're lying to you, right? Well, I'm still picking that one apart. He did have a perspective, and he was still wrong. And he did have a perspective, and it was still destructive. And have I had perspectives that were wrong? Mm-hmm. Have I had perspectives that were destructive? I'm finding that out. So, step one in picking this apart goes all the way back to the feelings again. Others cannot know you if you do not know yourself. So the step one is, what you feel is what you feel, and you have a right to feel anything you are feeling. Anything you feel, it's true. That is what you're feeling, and it's okay to feel. You're human, you're on the human condition, and this experiment of Earth life, and feeling is part of it. So it's okay. So if you can hear you and hear that this bothers you, then just stand in the fact that this bothers me. Nobody can change that. The truth is, it bothers you. No one has to ever acknowledge the truth of what you're experiencing for it to be true. I'm going to give you some validating phrases. Ready? When somebody is saying something you don't quite agree with, you can say, that's a significant insight. Tell me more about that. Okay? Because if you don't agree with it, you may not fully understand. Just the validation of feelings. I know you're sad. It's okay to be sad. It's also okay for me to feel attacked. Right? The feelings are not wrong. We just need to listen to them. What about when somebody's doing something and you really want to teach them the right way because you can see the train wreck happening and they don't want to have any kind of words of wisdom from you at all? Suspending your shame that you are a bad parent because they're going to experience something that's not easy. You say, I understand. I love how determined you are, and I know that you're going to figure this out. That's validating and affirming their potential. There may be some bumps, and you know that. You don't have to say it. Trust that people can experience things and make it through. Trust that the thing that you need to do is guide them should they choose to accept your guidance, and if not, to validate that they are doing a great job being a human. And when they come back and they're all bruised, you don't say, I told you so. There's a course, by the way, that we teach called Mentoring at Home. And in the Mentoring at Home course, we actually have tools and practices that you do all week with your kids to learn the skills that you didn't get on how to do some of this stuff. So if you are interested in mentoring at home, it is a beautiful program that really teaches us how to honor yourself, honor your children, honor their perspective, help them explore things without invalidating, help ask the right questions so that they start getting curious and learn the power of curiosity. And it's just beautiful. So I invite you to come to the Mentoring at Home program and learn more about it. Now, if you are still in a place where your emotions you're not aware of them, or you punish yourself for feeling, especially negative emotions, if you tell yourself, I shouldn't feel that way, I should feel this way, if you bounce over any other emotion other than the positive stuff, like you're really good at the silver lining thing and you jump and you feel really emotionally alone, then I invite you to take the Joyful Heart Mentoring course, all right? That's it for today. I love you. I am so grateful for you all showing up. It keeps me moving, it keeps me talking, it helps me peel apart in my brain what I'm doing. I hope this was helpful. If it was, please share this with someone and invite people to follow, because I would love to get more and more of this out. All right? Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.